ELC workshop with the theme, Where Does AI Fit? Optimizing Business Development with AI, brought to you by the Entrepreneurship and Libraries Conference, also called ELC. The ELC hosts free conferences and workshops on how libraries support entrepreneurship in their communities. The ELC is for and by information professionals who support and believe in the power of inquiry and information to transform lives and support entrepreneurial endeavors. Today's theme explores how artificial intelligence can support and enhance business development services in libraries. With a panel presentation and training session, attendees will leave with actionable ideas for integrating AI into their work, supporting entrepreneurs, and small business owners. My name is Jose Rincon, and I am a member of our workshop planning team. We hope you find today's workshop to be an educational and thought-provoking network opportunity. We wish to extend a big thank you to today's presenters, participants, and planning team. We are going to share the names of our planning team in the chat, so you have that for reference. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Simply Analytics and Privco, for funding ELC activities. Juan Vasquez from Simply Analytics will give us a quick hello. Is Juan here with us today? Oh, there he is.
I am. Hi, Jose. Thank you. Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. So Juan here from the Simply Analytics team. I just wanted to say on behalf of Simply Analytics, just want to say how happy we are to once again support ELC. We've been proud to support this event for many years, and it's something that we look forward to every year. Also want to thank the ELC directors, the planning team, all the attendees for allowing us to be a part of this conversation. And it's also really nice to see so many familiar names and faces, in the chat and everything. So it's great to see everyone. So this year's theme revolving around AI is really exciting. With Simply Analytics, we are really interested in how AI can help businesses, and it'll be a big part of our platform moving forward. And we see libraries and librarians taking on an even more critical role in this new future. But I'll leave that for another conversation. So I just wanted to say thank you all again. I'm eager to learn from this meeting.
Thank you, Juan. Now we'll hear from Dan Gingert from Privco. Dan, are you with us?
I'm not sure he is here, Jose, and double checking. Dan is at a conference in Illinois and thought he could come in, but perhaps not. And if he doesn't, I'll do his 30-second thank you note.
Let's see here.
Triple checking.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, so sorry. This is Steve Kramer, UNC Greensboro. Hello, everyone. Welcome. One of the ELC directors. Thank you to Dan Gingert of Privco for being a longtime sponsor, like Simply Analytics and Juan Vasquez, to this event in our programming and networking. Privco produces private company data. We will put a link to their URL and to Dan's email address into chat. So thank you also, Dan from Privco. Back to you, Jose.
Yeah. We'll put Juan and Dan's emails and URLs into the Zoom chat. We do have an ELC code of conduct, and we will share the link in the chat. I will just read 2 sentences. Each ELC participant has the right to learn, network, and socialize in an environment of mutual respect and professionalism, free from harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Creating an environment is a shared responsibility of everyone involved in ELC events. Please contact the workshop co-chairs via Zoom chat or email if you believe you have been harassed or that a code of conduct violation exists. Our co-chairs are Jackie Eagleson and Carly Feinberg. A few Zoom housekeeping details to keep today's event running smooth. During the speaker talks, please keep yourself muted. And please keep your video off unless you would like to turn it on when asking a question. Comments and questions are welcome in the chat box at any time. Our colleague, Devin Waugh, will be moderating the chat and wanted to let you know that we will be saving the chat questions that are asked during this session. If you prefer back channel communication, we invite you to use the hashtag EntreLibCon. Now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Carly to get us started.
Thank you so much, Jose. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel. We're diving right in. Our panel is How Can AI Support Early Business Development? I'm Carly Feinberg, one of the co-chairs for this workshop, along with Jackie Eagleson and our lovely planning team, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. For this panel, we're excited to bring in a group of practitioners who are actively thinking about and working at the intersection of AI, entrepreneurship, and library services. Our goal for this conversation is to make AI feel more practical, more grounded, and more applicable to the work you're already doing, whether that's supporting entrepreneurs, developing programming, or navigating these tools yourself. Before we jump into our questions, I'd like to briefly introduce our 4 panelists today. So, firstly, H.D. McKay is the librarian for business at Vanderbilt University's Walker Management Library and a lecturer at the Owen Graduate School of Management. Her work focuses on supporting entrepreneurship and market intelligence, with experience spanning academic libraries and innovation hubs like Mars Discovery District. Trisha Crutchfield is a multidisciplinary entrepreneur whose work sits at the intersection of information, community, and emerging technology. She runs multiple small businesses and brings both a researcher's rigor and a storyteller's perspective to her work. She actively integrates AI into her ventures and is passionate about helping others use these tools in creative, community-centered ways. Jonathan Torres is an associate professor and business and data services librarian with deep expertise in data literacy, analytics, and AI in education. He teaches and consults across academic, government, and organizational settings and has been recognized for his innovative use of AI in teaching, with his research cited in publications like Nature and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And then finally, Susan Archambault is head of reference and instruction in the library at Loyola Marymount University and a guest faculty member at the University of Washington's Information School, USA. Her research interests include information literacy, AI literacy, and evidence-based teaching in higher education. Okay, with that being said, we're very fortunate to have this group here with us today, and we are going to jump right into it. So each panelist will lead the question, will lead for specific questions, but the other panelists will have the chance to chime in and afterwards and share their take on the questions as well. So first and foremost, I want to start with Jonathan, our first question of the panel. Jonathan, what role do you think libraries should play in helping communities understand and evaluate AI tools?
Well, firstly, I want to thank the committee for giving me the invitation to be a part of this excellent panel. I'll just dive right into it. The role of libraries is vital in helping communities, patrons, small businesses, researchers evaluate AI tools more than ever before. As information professionals such as myself, as well as the other information professionals here, our line of work involves helping communities understand and disseminate what constitute quality information and misinformation. Could I be able to share my screen? I want to provide some visualizations for everybody. I promise to keep this within the 5-minute span. I just want to make sure. Can you guys see the slide that says AI information sources?
That looks great. Oh, well,
Awesome.
It's not full screen though, in case you want it to be full screen.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
It might block some of my notes in front of me, so I'll keep it like
Okay.
this. But as long as everybody can see the visualization, that's fine. So just wanted to make a few points within this 5 minutes of me speaking, that one of the important things about assessing quality information, not only for small businesses, but for higher education and our public patrons, is, as you can see, the information that comes out of ChatGPT, which is probably the most popular generative AI platform out there, 40% of the information comes from Reddit, 26% from Wikipedia, 23% from YouTube, 23% from Google, and the list goes on, as you can see here. This is only a snapshot of what's being retrieved from generative AI platforms such as ChatGPT, as well as the other AI platforms. There is a lot of artificial hallucination that goes on with these platforms, as well as other forms of misinformation. And I feel, as a librarian myself and information professionals, we can bridge that gap between our public users entrepreneurs and people within higher education. The other aspect that I do want to touch on is the perceptions and trust gap, right? So this is really important, especially with the new adoption of new technologies. As you can see in this survey, the public sentiment towards AI showed that 25% was in fact positive towards AI. However, in the highlight, the data shows that there was a 39% of negative perception towards AI. And I feel that it's our duty as information professionals and libraries that we serve as knowledge centers for the public good to help understand what generative platforms are and how to use them effectively, such as prompting, as well as to empower people rather than discouraging them from using this emerging technology. Two other things that I do want to focus on, or three, is the digital divide and how it impacts professions. So as you can see here in this chart, it shows that high-income workers are likely to use AI at 83%. So they adopt it, they use it for their work at 83% compared to low-income workers at 36%. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this can really cause economic disparity and inequality among people, not only in the US, but internationally. And as you guys know, increasingly generative AI platforms use a subscription-based model, which may cause more economic disparity for people who cannot afford them. And last but not least, I do want to touch on the responsible AI and AI usage. And what was alarming about this particular statistic here is there is a gap in knowledge and training by 59%. So one of the challenges in terms of implementing responsible AI is there's a lack of knowledge and training by 59%. So when I saw this statistic, I just felt that in our profession within library and information science, that not only can we empower the average user, we can empower small businesses and we can empower people within higher education through a wide variety of different ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. There was a question about people were interested in using the statistic that you presented on your first slide. So if you want to answer that in the chat, I think people would appreciate that. But I'm glad you touched on the equity side of things. And it's so true that so many of the different platforms do have a paid subscription now. So I'm glad you brought that up. As I mentioned, our different panelists are leaders for certain questions, but I want to open it up in case any other of our panelists want to speak to this question. Again, what role do you think libraries should play in helping communities understand and evaluate AI tools? All right, that's okay. Let's move on. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Speak up, Carly.
Thank you.
Oh, please. Yeah, Trisha, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say part of what I do as a consultant is I work in the digital equity space. And I have been kind of sad that I've not seen a lot of focus on helping those who are lesser resourced learn about AI and have experience with the tools. So I kind of want to challenge you all to think about how you can do that in your libraries. I think it's we're kind of at the beginning of the initiatives to help people in general learn about AI, but still it's incredibly valuable, and no one much seems to be terribly interested in certain areas. I was at a conference the other week, and I mentioned, training people with digital regarding digital equity and AI, and folks did not seem to be terribly concerned about that. They thought that people would just pick it up, and I'm screaming, no, that's not probably going to ever happen. But
that's a great point. That's so true. Thank you, Trisha. Now I'll jump into the second question. I'm going to first pose this question to Susan. Susan, how can librarians responsibly introduce AI tools to patrons who may have varying levels of digital literacy? So that's a good segue into our second question.
Yeah, so librarians have actually been teaching people to evaluate information critically for decades, right? It's just that the technology is what changes, but the essential questioning skills don't change. So it's like you still want to ask, where did this come from? Who made this? Can you trust it? Varying digital literacy, I would say, is not just about knowing more or less all the time. So, like, for example, our research at LMU found that after a single ChatGPT workshop, students' confidence in understanding AI shot up really dramatically. But unfortunately, their actual knowledge didn't really improve as much. So we called this the confidence knowledge gap. And it's not just a knowledge problem, it's actually also an emotional problem. People develop this felt sense that these systems are trustworthy without even realizing it. And this makes them, of course, a lot less likely to push back or to look for what's missing. So, to answer your question, here are a few things I would recommend to help librarians introduce tools to patrons. The first thing is I would say, before anything else, like it's really important to vet the tools yourself first before you're going to introduce it to patrons. So you should play with it, sort of like do your homework first. And then you can figure out ahead of time, like what the tools do well, where they fall short, and also who are they really appropriate for. And there are frameworks out there that are designed to specifically help you evaluate AI tools. At LMU, we developed one of these frameworks. So it's called the React framework, which walks you through how to evaluate a tool, looking specifically for relevance, ease of use, assessing the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility components, also the currency, and also the transparency. And I know on the brass AI LibGuide, there's also a tool that's really cool, which is called the robot test, which is pretty similar to the one that we developed. So, no matter what framework you use, I think it's really helpful. Either way, the goal is going to be the same. It just can help you be more honest with your patrons about the benefits as well as the drawbacks. So also the audience question matters a lot here. So not every tool is going to be right for every literacy level, right? So just as a quick example, at LMU, like we wouldn't introduce first year students to a tool like Undermined, which is a highly agentic AI tool that does a lot of the research process for you, because it requires enough experience to sort of judge the output. And also, you have to have enough self-awareness to really decide how much cognitive offloading you want to do. Whereas on the other hand, a faculty member, they can handle that. So the second thing I would say is it's helpful to build on what patrons already know. And thinking about the business context, I would say like most founders already vet vendors before they sign contracts, right? So they don't take the supplier's pitch at face value. So this is evaluating AI generated content is really the same skill. You're not teaching something foreign, you're just sort of extending this critical habit that's already there. The third thing I would say is to use case studies to sort of make the invisible become more visible. I found that that's really effective, a lot more effective than just like an abstract lecture if you want to sort of show bias or ethics. And at LMU, we like to use the case study of OpenAI's exploitation of Kenyan workers. I don't know if everyone knows the story, but they basically paid them less than $2 an hour to label graphic and violent content just so that the rest of us can have a cleaner experience. So I think that makes it become less abstract and more like, oh, this is a supply chain question now. And I think that founders will understand that. And then the last thing I would say is to scaffold carefully and build in deliberate friction when you're teaching these AI tools. In our ChatGPT workshops, what we found was that students did not iterate. Like they asked one prompt, like they typed in one prompt, they got one answer, and then they thought they were done. They didn't want to like go back and interact again. So I would say if you're teaching the tools, like you want to build that into what you do. So sort of like force them to like push back and not just accept the first answer that's given. So I think you can like model this, you can help people practice this, and then require them to keep on iterating.
That's a great response. And the iteration is actually going to be touched on in our learning session after the panel. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And when you mentioned the React framework, is that available to anyone by chance?
Yeah, that's actually available. So it we actually Jose, who's on this call, and I wrote an article about it, and it's available in computers and libraries. And I can dig that up if anyone's interested. I can put the link in the chat.
That might be great. So thank you
Okay.
so much for that. And also, I like your point about the case studies too, to make it more feel more real life. Thank you so much, Susan. Now, well, I'll pause for a second. Does anyone else, any of our other panelists, want to touch on this question? How can librarians responsibly introduce AI tools to patrons who may have varying levels of digital literacy? Okay. All right. Our third question, I'm going to ask Trisha. Trisha, when you think about AI in the context of business development, where do you see it adding the most value right now? And where is it overhyped?
Oh, wow. So I see the most value probably in early business development when people are trying to get their ideas off the ground and doing early stage market development and synthesis of information to craft and shape their business. Where people often go wrong is they trust all that information at face value without doing any kind of research to validate what it's telling them. And also, something that happens is that there's a general lack of judgment that is not incorporated into AI. And sometimes it happens to the best of us that despite great prompting, you're going to get something given to you that perhaps the computer thinks it's amazing, but your knowledge of how the world works is not embedded into what they're recommending. I'll give you an example. I was working on developing a name for a new business, and the name I immediately burst out laughing when I heard it, and it was overtly sexual. And the AI did not understand that this is not an appropriate name for a business. So that's kind of where things fall short in a big way, is that lack of judgment. One of the other things that I found as an entrepreneur, just going and comparing multiple business ideas, which is a great way to use AI, is to compare and contrast. If I'm targeting one audience or doing a specific business venture for another audience, which one is going to make me more money, which one's going to be more successful, which one's going to have more staying power. But what I found is in those comparisons, AI is generally a very positive, very rarely gives you any negative feedback that this idea is likely to fail within 6 months. And even when you specifically prompt AI to evaluate all weaknesses and tell me how long you think this business will last before it declines, it has a hard time doing that. It has a difficult time kind of getting real. And a lot of the testing that you would normally do in assessing whether a business is valid, the validity testing is just not something that it does well. And a lot of the numbers that it feeds people in terms of estimates of revenue and that kind of thing is way overhyped, and many people who are starting new businesses don't have that judgment and experience to know that you're probably not going to make $700,000 in your first month, no matter what you do. And so, as a librarians, it's great to help people have realistic expectations, to help them think through things that perhaps are not quite based in reality that AI is feeding individuals. And I wouldn't necessarily call that a full-on hallucination. It's that the AI is telling them things that are plausible. Yes, maybe it's plausible to make $700,000 in a week in Los Angeles, but in Western North Carolina, where I live, there's no way on the world. So those are some major ways we need to watch out for and consider how we're using the tool.
Thank you, Trisha. That's a great response. Yes, I think sometimes AI is just too positive. And like you said, even if you're asking for the potential downsides, it's hard to get the facts there. I appreciate that. Again, opening the floor to our other panelists. Again, the question is, when you think about AI in the context of business development, where do you see it adding the most value right now, and where is it overhyped?
Well, I just wanted to touch on
Sorry.
that comment in terms of confirmation bias, and that's kind of the problem with ChatGPT per se. It will tell you everything you want to hear, whether it's a good business plan or maybe not so good. It's going to provide this positive spin on just about everything, even if you reprompt it. I think that's part of the challenge. Um, I don't have anything that's like overhyped. I think it's been covered. You can prompt ChatGPT to ask about finances, and it might over exaggerate. So I think our panelists pretty much nailed it on the head. So thank you.
Definitely. And it kind of points back to what you were saying, Jonathan, with you have to double check the sources too,
Right.
because the information you're getting could be from Reddit. So you have to know. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to our next question for HD. HD, how are you currently using AI to support entrepreneurs or small business owners? Can you share a specific example?
Yes, this conversation has been so fascinating so far because it's making me want to make a bunch of changes to a project I'm working on, which is my response to this question. So there's when I started here, I've been at Vanderbilt for about 3 years, and one of the things that my manager was like, this like innovation community, the entrepreneurship, commercialization, like you got to help me like figure out this issue. And this issue, to summarize, I think was a number of constraints that business librarians feel when they're working with the entrepreneurship community at a campus. So one is terms of use. So yes, these are business databases, and they're like, but you can't use it for commercialization. It's like, but you can use it with your entrepreneur, like student entrepreneurs. So it's like, but entrepreneur, like they work on real business. Anyway, so you can see like already. And then the other terms of use is like current faculty, staff, students only for non-commercial purposes. It's like, okay, but like a lot of these entrepreneurship programs, increasingly so, is about partnerships. We have our innovation center that runs a like federal grant funded thing that serves all of the mid-South, and it's like we can't, offer them the same level of service or engagement that we might be able to do for those who are affiliated directly with us. And then the opaque the lack of transparency and how their products are put together. I think some of the best partners are very quite transparent, but also understandably so, like that's their secret sauce. And so you wouldn't expect them to really give away exactly how they're putting their, data and analysis together. And so there's in some ways necessarily opacity in how the insights are delivered. But for us, it's a little bit frustrating because that it's then harder to assess those very questions that Susan talked about, when you try to apply those frameworks. It's like it comes from this source, but we kind of know that they rely on some official statistics as sources, and maybe, they have analysts who have whatever years of experience, and they're kind of embedded into the relevant business and industry sector networks, et cetera. So it's a lot of it is built on trust that those folks know what they're doing as well, and us triaging among different sources. And then there's the pricing. So it's like business resources often the most expensive. And they, in addition to these terms, it's like the pricing. But I would argue actually the pricing is not the biggest barriers because, we're pretty well resourced and we still face a lot of these other struggles. And so I was like, well, now we have AI, and we always knew that like our go-to whenever we couldn't provide service to like the people who aren't current campus affiliates was like, but you can use the freely available census information. And it's like, here's the census, here's the tables or charts from gov.com or whatever, the data.gov. And it's like, right? Like, it's like they want the fancy desserts and the custards and the chocolate, like, but it's like, here's some broccoli and carrots and Brussels sprouts, right? So, so we're like, okay, what if we could, as business librarians, we combine our know-how and critical lens, take the AI tools available and bring them together to overcome all of these constraints. And so the experiment we're running, I connected with another business librarian in Canada in Concordia University who brings more of like a software engineering background, but also business and data librarian. With my I had done some work in sort of product management and design as well, in addition to my business librarian work. So we came together, and so we put together this what we have now is a beta. We talked about it briefly at the fall ELC meeting. It was called Data Web at that time. And so now we're rolling out a beta product and would like to invite you all here to test it out, give it a whirl, and give us feedback before we roll it out. So the idea with this is that it works very much like ChatGPT, but it's because we're building it, we're able to be transparent about how we're bringing it through and state where our limitations are, and Vanderbilt fortunately has a good collaboration with AWS. And so we were able to get a grant to build to support the technical part of it so that we're not having to limit people with token sizes or number of queries you can run or whatever. So we have a good cushion there. And then I just put in a grant application for working on the governance layer, right? So the next phase we want to do is now we have sort of a stable working tool. We want to have some initial early pilot partners that we can come up with okay, how could we develop this tool in a way that's more fair, more transparent, and help those who currently, we just talked about the digital divide, how we can help bridge those gaps as well. And so help them further their business by using the latest technologies for those where that's the hardest to reach. So we're hoping to work with a public library system locally, as well as an incubator that works with underserved communities, where entrepreneurship is sort of their only way. They don't necessarily have other labor options. And so yeah, that's a tool. I'll put the link to the tool and the access code in the chat. So I would very much love to get everyone's feedback here on that.
Thank you, HG. Yes, someone just mentioned hearing about that project and being impressed when you mentioned it in the fall. So that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Any other panelists want to share how they are currently using AI to support entrepreneurs or small business owners? Anyone can chime in with their own example if they'd like.
I'll just chime in really quick. I've used it in terms of the marketing aspects. So we currently work, when I say we, here at Rutgers University North, we work with the Small Business Association. And one of my goals was to kind of implement some type of generative AI component. And what we did is we worked with a wide variety of different platforms that provided visualizations, and we provided marketing aspects and marketing strategies. For the most part, I think, to go back to our panelists in the beginning, I'm kind of mindful of having our public patrons and small business owners use ChatGPT to create business reports and things of that nature, because there could be a lot of artificial hallucinations there. But for the marketing projects, it's it's fun, it's creative, and it's very interactive.
That's a great example. And small business owners, from my experience, are always looking for different ways to improve their marketing. So
Yep.
thank you, Jonathan.
No problem.
Okay, we're gonna start our second round of questions. So I'm gonna jump back to Susan. Susan, how can we ensure we're using AI in a way that is ethical, transparent, and doesn't unintentionally mislead entrepreneurs? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier how people develop an emotional trust in these systems before they've even evaluated them critically sometimes. And I think that dynamic is what makes unintentional misleading so hard to guard against, because the trust is already there before the question even gets asked. So, and I just think the stakes can be really high if you're making a real business decision. For example, if there's a hallucinated statistic in a pitch deck, or a fabricated competitor analysis, or hidden assumptions in a market report, these have real consequences for you. So how do we counteract that? So at LMU, I know I'm going to go back to another framework. We love creating frameworks at LMU, but we developed an ethics framework, which is we call it TAP, TAAP, and I'm just going to explain what it is. So TAP stands for transparency and disclosure, authority evaluation, accuracy validation, and also privacy considerations. So this was originally developed for people doing academic research, but I do think it can translate directly to the business context as well. So transparency means being honest about what AI's role is in anything that you share. So this means like you would document what tools you used, when you used it, and how you used it. This is so important because, AI tools are not perfectly reproducible. The same query can yield really different results at different times. So, like if you're sharing AI generated market analysis with investors, you definitely need to document the date, the tool, and like what you actually asked, so the prompt, rather than just presenting it as original proprietary research. So going back to TAP, so the first A in TAP stands for authority, which means you evaluate the tool itself, not just the output. So you want to look at who built it, like what data was it trained on, what was left out. And a lot of these systems are black boxes. And I just think like the ESG ratings are a really good example of that. Those are the scores that investors use to assess how responsibly a company is operating. And the same company can score dramatically differently across major agencies, not because the facts are different, but just because each algorithm is embedding these hidden methodological choices that the user is never going to see. So, what looks like an objective score is actually just a set of assumptions. And on a more practical note, like not all AI tools are equal. So definitely like general purpose tools like ChatGPT are significantly more prone to fabricating stuff as opposed to a specialized research AI tool. But even those are not perfect. So but I just would caution if you're using a general purpose tool like ChatGPT to source claims, you just want to be really careful. So getting back to TAP, so then the second A is accuracy. So obviously you have to verify everything. And because the thing is, you're going to get fluent, confident sounding output that seems like it's been already verified, but of course it is not. And, the consequences can be really high in the business context for this. So, like credit scoring algorithms, for example, that disadvantage certain founders before they even get started, or fraud detection tools that freeze cards for data poor customers. These are not just edge cases. They're like what happens when AI outputs get accepted without verification. And then the last part of TAP is privacy. So this means being really, really careful about what you feed into these systems. And many platforms are going to retain your inputs. So proprietary projections, unreleased product details, customer data, like you definitely need to read the privacy policy before you upload anything sensitive. I know that the TAP framework won't solve everything, but I feel like it does build in the habit of pausing before you act. So just asking yourself, like, how was this generated? What could be missing? And then like what needs more verification? I think in a business environment where everyone probably is like just wanting to accept the first output, if you develop this kind of more critical judgment, I think you can maybe get ahead of your competitors.
Thank you, Susan. I'm glad you mentioned the TAP framework because I think, like you said, it's good to think about that acronym before you just accept whatever information is provided to you. So thank you so much for that. We also have a question in the chat in case any panelists want to type that in. But since we only have 10 minutes left, I'm going to jump to the next question to see how many questions we can get to. HD, this question is for you. What are the biggest limitations or risks of using AI in business advising or research?
Yeah, and I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
I think 100% it is that these models out of the box are designed to be very like encouraging and like, yeah, you can go after that market and earn whatever, have 7,000, 70,000 revenue in the first month. So being able to fine tune and scale those kinds of things a little bit, I think is important. And I think like it's like two opposite sides of the same coin. Like it legitimately, like the tools we have now, like allow us to do so much more it allows librarians to build tools, not just use them, like really small scale, large scale. And so there's great agency in that, but at the same time, it's like this risk of overconfidence, right? Easier to make a lot of mistakes too. And so that's one of the key things that we think a lot about when we're working on this beta is how do we make sure that it helps bolster like the human to human relationship. So intentionally in the like beta rollout, like some of our messaging is couching the tool within human, like already existing sort of human interactions. So the idea is that it's not just you and the tool in conversation creating business, but it's, how do we help first-time entrepreneurs who don't know the questions they should be asking or whatever, and providing some guidance around that, but also saving the work of like the really one-on-one type conversations that advisors have to have before they can get their entrepreneurs to like a point where they can really bring their like expertise to bear on their business. And so the idea is that you work with the tool to get some guidance on the questions you should be asking, getting some good data from good sources that's been curated by librarians, but also enriched as well. And then you get a customized report that you then don't build your business around, but you take that to inform the conversations you have with the real human experts. So I do think there's definitely those challenges. I don't think they're insurmountable. I think they're being solved or quasi-solved in lots of different ways. I think the question for me is, can librarians play a role in being able to solve those in better ways?
Absolutely. I appreciate that insight. Kind of a balancing game, it seems like. Okay, Jonathan, this question's for you. And I think this actually relates to a question I just saw pop up in the chat related to developing AI skills. So this question, Jonathan, what skills should librarians and business advisors be developing now to stay relevant as AI continues to evolve?
Well, I see it in three different segments. I think the first thing is the ability to develop effective prompts should be a top priority, along with the skills needed to use for just about any generative AI platform. It's essentially a mindset. So we're used to searching in search bars like Google and Yahoo and things of this nature. So it's just switching that mindset to developing prompts and understanding what generative AI platforms you're using. So that goes to my second one. Perhaps the most overlooked skill for both librarians and business advisors is to understand what type of information and coverage that's coming out of generative AI platforms, right? So I spoke about it briefly about the difference between like ChatGPT and their coverage compared to Claude or an academic generative AI platform such as Consensus, all different coverage, different information varies based on different platforms. So understanding what you're retrieving from these platforms is going to be essential, right? To really understand their strengths and weaknesses are going to be essential to that process. And the third thing that I think is going to be very important is identifying data and privacy issues will be foundational when dealing with patrons, clients, and students with AI, especially when you're dealing with proprietary information. I'm still in shock in terms of like how our students just give away their information to these AI platforms without even thinking twice. But I think it's going to be super beneficial in terms of understanding like the terms of use, identifying how they're using your data, and as well as if you're building your own generative AI platform for your business, is understanding how that information is being used for your clients because you don't want to get sued.
Definitely. Yeah, the data and privacy I think is huge, and people don't realize that the information gets stored out there in the ether. Thank you, Jonathan. Now we have 5 minutes. I'm gonna ask my last question to Trisha. Trisha, where have you seen AI improve efficiency in areas like market research, customer discovery, or program development?
And I'm going to be brief because we've covered a lot of these things. So market research definitely it's sped things up. It's not always on the mark as we've discussed. It's really good at competitive monitoring. So having perhaps, and this is a little out there, having an agent monitor the environment for your competitors. I also want to mention learning who your customers are. It's really good at helping you discover new types of customers that you might not have thought about, but it's also not always on point. I had an experience last week where it mentioned a specific older adult population, and I happened to encounter an older adult lady who had absolutely no interest in this business that the AI said it would be a great match for. So again, it's just a matter of verifying what you're hearing from lots of different sources within AI and out in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we have one question left with 4 minutes to spare. I'm going to pose this to all our panelists, and I think we'll have enough time. So our closing question for our panel today is if you could give one piece of advice to librarians who want to start incorporating AI into their work, what would it be? So just one piece of advice.
Experiment with a small class. I mean, I did it with one of our business programs first, and it kind of bubbled from there. And there's a lot of when I first started using AI pedagogy and resources, this was a few years ago, there was really nothing out there in terms of studies, which led to my study as well. There's a bunch of different AI pedagogy studies that you can kind of emulate in your classroom. So I would say start off small, work in collaboration with your colleagues, and then take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan.
I would say don't be afraid to experiment with new tools, in particular agentic tools like Manus and would be one I would maybe recommend for someone who's a little beyond the generative AI kind of basic kind of tools. Also, check out the Anthropic training on Claude. It's free.
Oh, that's good. And actually, we're going to be touching on Manus in the next session, so that'll be good. HD or Susan, what do you think?
Yeah, I can go next. My advice is don't wait until you feel like an expert because that moment will never come. Just because like the landscape is just moving way too fast to feel like you're an expert. But the good news is you don't have to figure it out alone. Like there are a lot of resources out there to help you. And in particular, I just want to give a shout out to the ACRL. They recently drafted the AI competencies framework specifically for library workers. So that's a really great resource. I know Brass has like a great AI LibGuide that has a lot of great resources. And then the other thing I just want to mention, like also K through 12 organizations have developed a lot of great resources too. And just to give you a quick example, the one I really like is MIT's A Day of AI. It has like a lot of great free adaptable curriculum and professional development resources that I think actually translate surprisingly well to adult learners.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. Maybe we can add that to the chat too. And Amanda in the chat mentioned Gale Udemy for Libraries has excellent prompt engineering trainings available. So lots of opportunities for training. Thank you, Susan.
And I'll just chime in. I would say, like, think about what you have on your back burner projects. Like, oh, if I only had extra time, I could tackle this. And see if the tool, by using the tool, you can get there. So for instance, when I was preparing for a workshop, I used Claude to create a demo script, a lesson plan, and a handout. I really liked the lesson plan, but I didn't have time to like test it, and I didn't have faith that I could run it without testing it first. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep this for like this other thing that I'm doing where I'll have more time. And went with more of my default. The handout was excellent. I like tweaked the wording a little bit, swapped a couple of like resources. And I basically like used that and as a handout. And I definitely would not have put that together in the time I had to prep the workshop. And then the demo script, I think, gave me ideas for how to approach demos. So I would say like pick something on your back burner that that wouldn't get done otherwise as a way to use AI to your advantage. And the other is getting a sense, like a experiential sense of the strengths and weaknesses of the different tools. So knowing just even high level like that something like Gemini is better with images because it's trained the way that it's trained. Claude is like great at code, but terrible at images. And then one step up from that, like how you can stack a couple of tools together to maximize. So we have a license to Canva, and if I connect Canva with Claude, then I can come up, it helped me build my deck to do like a prototype of some like whatever new product that I use as an example in my instruction, and things like that. So that would be my two suggestions.
Thank you so much. Those are really good examples, especially how you mentioned the back burner list of things you might not get to. So I love that. And there's also some great resources being added in the chat as well. So now we're 1 minute over, but I want to thank you, the panelists, so much for sharing their thoughts and insights on this topic. I learned a lot. I hope everyone in the audience did as well. Um, so for those of you in the audience, I hope this conversation helped make AI feel a bit more approachable and gave you a few ideas you can take back and start experimenting with on your own. And yep, just one more thank you. I'm jumping through my notes so we can move on, but one more thank you to you all. And yeah, we're going to now move on in our workshop. So appreciate your time. And I will pass it back to Jose.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was a really great conversation. We have a learning session with Tom Collopy coming up, but it looks like he hasn't joined the room yet. I know he was coming to join us after another room. So I'm wondering if the panel is willing to maybe answer any questions that came into the chat.
That's a great idea, Jackie. Yeah, I definitely saw a few. Here, what was just the one? Oh, okay. This is one of the questions that caught my attention earlier. If all entrepreneurs are using AI to get ahead of their peers, aren't they all then on the same page? Another reason to promote the use of information professionals as a part of the oh, sorry. That caught my attention, but it wasn't necessarily a question. It was just a good comment.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with that comment.
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, let me see which the questions that caught my eye. Okay, here's a good one. Of all the general AI tools that can provide a more robust and provide a more robust and verified sources, which would you prefer? I'm surprised I haven't heard someone mention Perplexity yet. So do you all have a favorite or one you'd recommend?
Can I be completely honest? So
Please.
in the for Perplexity, that study, that survey, the visualization that I will be providing to everybody at the end of today's presentation, it actually mentioned in the survey that Perplexity uses stuff like Reddit and Wikipedia and things of that nature. So although it's considered like a research AI component to it, I think that there's so many different other generative AI platforms that you can use for just general research. And so if you don't have, let's say, for an example, Scopus AI, which many R1 academic institutions use, but if you don't have it, there's other academic generative AI platforms like Consensus that kind of work. Which else? SciSpace as well. But just keep in mind that a lot of the information that is being used it's from Semantic Scholar, which is open access publications, right? So it's interesting. But Perplexity is good. But once again, in that particular survey, it showed that Perplexity is getting their information from it's not the best quality information, I guess you could say.
No, I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you, Jonathan. Here's a question. Oh, well, before I move on, is there any other tools people wanted to highlight?
I can go. In terms of just general AI, I like Claude. I would say I'm a Claude fan as opposed to the other ones. Like I just find it to be in general like more accurate. But even so, I still have to verify everything. So, but I tend to like the more specialized research tools because I do think they're a bit more accurate and they tend to be more restricted in the data that they're drawing from. And a lot of times they're only drawing from like, academic sources. So.
Thank you, Susan. I have a friend who calls Claude Claudette, which I appreciate.
That's a great point, Carly, that many of us name our AI companions and coworkers. I would also point out, we talked about Claude a lot, but in Claude in particular, there are different components of Claude that do work a little differently. So you might like certain aspects of a tool, not instead of just the general tool.
Yeah, definitely. They have their pros and cons for sure. Uh, I think Tom is with us.
Hi,
So
Carly. I'll speak out, so maybe Zoom will pop me up on your screen.
yes, you're here. Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for joining us. Perfect segue to your session now. So I'll let you take it away. Well, actually,
I have
um,
an introduction.
yeah, Jackie, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I think you have the introduction.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for that great conversation. So I'm Jackie Eagleson. I'm one of the other co-chairs, and we are going to have a presentation by Tom Collopy. Tom is the Executive Director of Automated Consulting Group and CEO of Unbiased Insights. He's the creator of the WISE Guides, a series of AI-powered manuals used by businesses to accelerate growth, streamline strategy, and improve execution. Tom teaches entrepreneurship at UNC Chapel Hill, where he pioneered AI-based learning systems and authored Launched, Unlocking Yes, and Selling Outcomes that all talk about using AI to accelerate new venture development. So thank you, Tom, for joining us today, and I'm going to hand it over for his presentation.
Hi, everyone. I am Tom Collopy, as she said, and I got my AI journey started both advising an AI-based startup, someone who was doing AI before you all knew about it for the last 13 years. And he decided he wanted to build a consulting company as he saw a big demand for people like you all trying to figure out how to use this powerful but kind of scary tool, and started applying it. I think it was 3 years ago in my classroom, trying to figure out how I can merge in the knowledge you can get out of it, but keep critical thinking being part of the process of the classroom. So I've been doing that for 3 years. I'm going to walk through a presentation. You do not have to remember everything I say because I created the website using a tool called Manus.ai to help you have access to all the content later. And you'll see that website address multiple times. My goal today was to try and think as much as I could like a librarian. So you're going to see how AI tried to help me think like how a librarian is facing the world. And it will probably do an 80% good job at it, is typically what it will do. But it's trying to give you the ability to walk away from this session with, I could use this right now for this customer that walks in the door or this student that walks in the office. So that's the goal of today. I love questions. Happy to give you my evolving opinions about which tools I like to use. But I will leave that to the end if that's of any interest to anybody else. I am going to try and share my screen and see if that works. Let's do this. Not share the sound. Can anybody see AI for small business? And
See it.
let me get a
Yes, thanks,
layout where I
Tom.
can see people. I think that was a yes.
Yes, I see it.
All right, great. So if you have a phone, you're more than welcome to take a picture of that URL. I'll show it to you again. But that's where everything that I created to try and help you post this meeting resides. And it's for your use, your understanding. If you want to use it in some other context, just please contact me before you do so. Some of that is also examples. So I would love for you to be able to leave this meeting with confidence. You're not going to leave, if you're wherever you are in your AI journey of expertise, you'll be a little bit farther ahead. But I want you to walk out of here with some things that you may not have seen before. And one of them is a repeatable prompting method that I use all the time. And then afterwards, like I said, I want you to be able to use the resources that I've tried to create for you. As you can see, the image generation of AI is getting better. ChatGPT is my favorite for creating images, and they just came out with an update. This was a one-shot prompt that I asked Claude to create a prompt for me that described the situation, and ChatGPT in one shot now can create that in reasonable looking outputs as compared to the people look pretty fake before when you were creating them. But when I was doing research and my experiences with advising startups for 10 years, I saw the same kinds of patterns through all different kinds of businesses. I've worked with e-commerce sellers, I've worked with consultants, I've worked with national retailers of athletic shoes. The business pattern, the business names tend to change, but the patterns tend to be the same. And so what I try to do is not give you an answer for each one of these, but to come up with something that you can, I think, pattern match to what is going on in your life and the kind of businesses that you're talking about. And what kind of the universal thing that I see, whether it's the students that I teach, the consulting companies, or the companies we consult with, they really don't want AI as a thing. That's something I have to learn. It's hard to understand. It keeps changing. But they do want things like, I want to write this marketing copy more clearly. I want to write this marketing copy for my small business so that customers get it right away. And they want to be able to get things that are usable right now. One of the accelerators I'm involved with is an accelerator that has Main Street businesses come into it. And their biggest reaction when I gave a session was, wow, you can actually create content that's as good or better than the content that I was getting created for me, that I was hiring someone for. And it wasn't me, it was understanding how to write the prompts that cause that kind of output. So this has been real. It's more and more real. And the basic method that I want to talk to you about is basically three tools and a technique. I was a big ChatGPT user from the very beginning. I can tell you I don't use it anywhere near as much as I used to. Claude and its ability to create documents that are well-formed, well-structured, ready to be delivered has taken the place for me of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is still a thought partner. I use it for deep research, but Claude is really focused on, I want the artifact, I don't want the process. And ChatGPT is still a heavily word-based output thought process kind of producer. The prompt template I'm going to show you is very basic, but it can be applied in many places. And then, although Claude can also create things like websites and outputs that people can use, I found that this tool called Manus.ai is really good for me in creating websites, and you'll see those websites. I'll literally show them to you, and it is really good at taking the ideas in my head, the things that Claude produces, and creates a website for me in very short order. And if you can imagine all the small businesses, their number one goal is they think they can help a customer get an outcome. They want to create marketing content that communicates that to them. And if they can do that effectively, they're going to have a stronger business. And Manus is really how I look at the publish side of that. And things like ChatGPT and Claude are kind of think through it and draft it up side of that. And I think those two things in combo are like the core set of tools that I would recommend or use and talk to people about. Manus does have the ability to think and draft. Claude does have the ability, but Manus's real strength is publish, and Claude's real strength is like writing in human terms. ChatGPT is kind of like me. It writes more like an engineer, and Claude writes more like I'm talking to a human. All right. So 4 things that I want to emphasize when you're thinking about helping small businesses. I do this when I try and help entrepreneurs. I usually work with early stage entrepreneurs or ones that are maturing. but the context that you are giving to your AI tool, whatever it is, really, really, really matters. And I can't emphasize enough how much it matters. Giving something very superficial as a statement, I am an e-commerce business, doesn't really help AI pattern match to all the things it learned about for specific types of e-commerce businesses. So what do you really do? What's your niche? Who your customer is? What problem does what problem does the business owner have? What's not working in their business? And then what is the goal that the business owner has that they want to achieve? I think of this in terms of outcomes. If I'm a business owner and I want to increase in-store revenue, that's my goal. That context really can make a huge difference. If you talk about my goal is to solve a problem, you will get a solution, but that solution may not deliver the outcome that they really want. So try to draw out of that business owner, what is it that you're really trying to achieve by solving this problem? What great thing will happen in your business? So if you take these four things and communicate those ideas to ChatGPT or to Claude or to Manus, then you're going to have a great foundation for getting some good output. And this is the prompting technique that I use all the time. I use it in my classroom. The students use it. I teach it to founders. If let's say I'm trying to create some marketing material, I would help them create a prompt, and I'll show you those. Create this for this context. And then the technique I use for a critique prompt is asking the AI tool to act as an expert in that type of business and answer three questions. What is that expert thinking when they read that content? What would they change? And why would they change it? You could also do the exact same thing with target customers. Act as a target customer. Tell me what that customer would be thinking, what they would change, and why they would make that change. Then you can get an updated version of that content. And this is where the person that walked into the library asking for your help really comes into the conversation. Let them they would read that and they would say, I disagree with this, this, and this in that content. And I'm concerned about this, this, and this. And that pushback prompt that they enter is really asking the experts, is there something I'm missing? This is what I'm thinking. Is there something I'm missing? Like, should there be something in this marketing content that I'm not even aware of that could really make the difference? And that pushback prompt helps the founder or the business owner feel like they're part of the process as opposed to just being told, you should send this out. And then the last step is do a final test of that content using the customer again, saying, what would a customer really think about this content? So you're getting expert opinion, customer opinion, and the business owner's opinion about that content. And these are not complicated prompts to run. I'll show you what they look like right now. And these, again, are in that resources on that website. So you'll have these. But here's the classic creation prompt. I help and this is you could be typing this in as a librarian. I help small business owners at my library. My trade patron runs a very descriptive type of business, ice cream store located in this part of town in this city. That's a very prescriptive. Their customers are, who do they think their customers are? The neighborhood high school that's close by and the local 3 developments that are close by. Their main problem right now is communicating weekly specials. Their goal is to boost the sale of their weekly specials on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 4 o'clock and 6 p.m. Help me create a poster that I can put up or a post I can put on Instagram that will reach my audience. Keep it practical and specific to the business. So these things that are in blue, this is where the context that you're putting in really makes a difference in the output. And a lot of times when I advise startup founders, they really many times haven't always thought through the specificity that could really help. So part of what you're actually doing is taking your knowledge of coaching businesses and coaching business owners and helping them think through what should be the answers to these context type questions. And that's the power of you as a librarian and someone who's seen a lot of things, you've got a lot of expertise, or you know how to go do some research on the spot to try and help them out to make those more specific. So I really see this as a AI plus your abilities plus the input from that person that walks in for help. It's really the combination of the three things that are going to give the best outcome. The next three prompts are that act as a business owner or act as an expert in that type of business. What are you thinking? What would you change? Why would you change it? And create an updated version. So we look at just step two. The way I teach this to my students and startup founders is read through the what are you thinking part. Read through why they would change it and what they would change, and then read the updated version. If you just read the updated version and miss out on the rationale, people tend to push and go back to what they're used to doing. Then that step three is that as the owner, I disagree with these things that were said in that content, and I'm concerned about this. And the key is having the expert AI, synthetic expert in the AI explain their viewpoint and identify concerns that are valid, and then update the output. And the last step is that test it as the customer would see it test. Act as a skeptical or first-time customer or price-sensitive customer. You can put a lot of different variables in that act as what type of customer it is, but try and be very specific about the business type, and then have that customer answer those same three questions and create a final version. So this is like the method that I teach almost all the time. And it really takes people's thinking from their perspective of the world to their customer's perspective, and it gets input from the experience that LLMs have been trained upon. So one way to think about this is a cafe owner. They walk in, they say, I've got this slow time during the week, and I'm trying to figure out what to post to get people to show up. The way I would do it if they walked up to me as a startup advisor is I would run this loop. I would ask those questions of AI, come up with ideas, create content for those ideas, and then run that content through that loop to see what my customer and experts would say about it. And then at the end of that, which is 10 minutes long, I've got these three new messages that I hadn't really thought of myself that I can now go test. So that's one example of a cafe owner. Again, another small business, HVAC owner. Their problem may be they always get the same questions, right? And they might want to be able to put something on their website that answers these questions. Explain who they are. This is the outcome I want is an FAQ sheet to put on my website, and go through that same sequence of expert advice, pushback, and test it with my customer. And that allows them to be a part of the process, but come up with something actually very quickly. All right. And other examples for the other three that I talked about, e-commerce, consultants, dental offices, really the pattern is the same. What is it they're trying to achieve that they can't? What kind of artifact or thing that needs to get created to help them achieve that? And then definitely use that critiquing process. All right. So is this really real? One of the things that has really changed in the last, I'd say, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, is the ability to start with an idea with AI. So let's say that somebody is just getting started in a business and they know they need a website. They know they need to engage their customers with different materials like a guide or a book or a podcast or an audiobook. They're really looking at a content problem at scale, not just like tactical problem solving. And I will tell you a story and then show you a website. Last Friday last Friday morning, I woke up with some ideas about things that I wanted to communicate to startup founders. They were related to illusions that founders have about things that they think are real, but they're not really based in evidence. And so I woke up and I had Claude help me write a LinkedIn post about it. And I said, this kind of feels like it could be a book. So I went to ChatGPT and I gave it the LinkedIn post and said, help me write a prompt for Claude, because Claude is a better writer today than ChatGPT is. Help me create a prompt for Claude for a book that communicates this idea more thoroughly, more deeply. And I want to include founder stories in the book so that people who are founders read it, they see themselves in it. So I gave that prompt to Claude, and it's probably now about 10 o'clock. I started at 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted Claude to go write it. I figured it'd take a little while. So I went and hit some golf balls. I came back about 10:30, and Claude had written the book for me. So now I have a LinkedIn post, a book, and I said, I really need a website to help people kind of understand what the book is about. And I sent that off to some colleagues of mine at UNC. And the next morning, one of them said, I'll get around to reading the book. Thanks for sending me the book. But if you had an audiobook and it was in your baritone voice, mine's pretty monotone, you know what it's like right now, I'd probably listen to the audiobook much sooner than I would read the book. So I found a tool called 11 Labs. 11 Labs, I went from being totally ignorant that it existed to picking it. And within an hour, I had an audiobook version of it that was in my remixed voice. And I'll tell you what the remixed voice is. The audiobook was created, and I had recorded 20 seconds of my speaking, gave it to the audiobook creator tool, and I created a sample. And my wife said, that sounds like monotonous Tom. Right. So monotonous Tom, as you're experiencing, is I don't have great inflection. I'm not a really great speaker. And I said to the AI tool, make this less monotonous. It gave me three choices. I clicked on each of the three. My wife picked the voice. I sent it off to friends of mine, and they said, is that your voice? And they were saying it kind of like, it sounds like you, but it doesn't sound like you. So within an hour, I had an audiobook. I wanted to add it to the website. I also wanted to create a short video. So I went into a tool called Notebook LM from Google, used that to create a short video. And so what I'm about to show you is the collection of all that. And hopefully you can, I think I'm going to have to switch. Just a second. Yeah. Ooh, what happened? No, I'm in a different browser. No, hold on. Thank you for your patience. I will get there in a second. No, it's not working. Huh. So this is the website. And up here, I could start
Founder Illusions
playing the book.
by Tom Collopy. Introduction. Welcome to the book Founder Illusions, How Founders Fool Themselves and the Simple Loop That Gets Them Unstuck.
There is a short video.
You're working hard, harder probably than you've ever worked.
And there is a book. that is 84, I think 84 pages long or 88 pages long. Why did I show that to you? I had the idea on Friday morning, Saturday at noon, everything you just saw existed. And the way I looked at this, I had ideas I wanted to communicate, and AI is allowing me to put that in the form that people will accept and use. So if you've got customers that are really interested in doing many different things with different content creation, the tools have gotten very, very good. The other example I will give you is I had a colleague of mine ask me to explain how I'm using AI to teach in the classroom. This was during a staff meeting at 11:15 a.m. on a Monday. I put two prompts into Manus and I put all my content into Manus, and it created this website that talks about my class. And here is every artifact that's in my class, the syllabus, the homework assignments, and the presentation files for every single class that I have. So I'm just trying to open your mind up to where the world is in terms of being able to help somebody create a lot of content. Again, Manus was my website builder. Claude was my book writer. 11 Labs was my audiobook creator. Notebook LM was my short video creator. And that's just the power that I see now in these tools. All right. So the next thing that's going to come up is cost. And what I'd like to talk a little bit about is what did all that cost, right? There's a cost to using AI at that scale. You'll be going along, it says you need to buy more credits. And one of the things that I think is happening with people is they're thinking of AI not as less expensive way to get the first draft or get something that you could hand to a real expert to refine. They're thinking of it as, I don't want to pay $20 a month. So the way I manage this is I have a $20 a month subscription to multiple tools, but when I use Manus, I might end up spending another 30, 40, 50, 60, $80 to build that next thing. But the power of what I've created is far cheaper than having anyone go do it for me, and it is so fast. So I will show you at the end what your website looks like. And I just felt it was worth it to spend like an extra $10 to be able to produce a website that was much more useful to you than me just coming here and talking about it kind of thing. And so to me, getting your business owner to not be so worried about the cost, but what the return on that investment really is. The most complex things I've done, like the website I just showed you, all told that probably everything, all the content probably cost $200. And if you think about what would it have taken a small business owner like myself to create all that content in the past, it'd be website developer, thousands of dollars, book writer, thousands of dollars, video creator, $500. I mean, the return on the small $200 investment I made feels very much bigger than it. I would have never done it for the cost of thousands of dollars myself. So that's one mindset shift I think that's important to be thinking about when you're talking to people. All right, so here's the way, and I'm not a librarian. I know some librarians. I think you're all some of the most fantastic people in the world and underutilized people in the world. You have incredible ways to look at the world and help people find the things that are valuable to them. But here's the things that I would suggest as you think about your role, if you think AI plays a part, is that clarity of what the real problem is that they're trying to work on. And I see this in startup advising all the time. They think they have a feature problem when they really have people don't understand what they're talking about, the outcome that they're going to produce for them. So kind of reframing the problem into the real problem. Hey, I want to use AI to do X. Okay, great. When you do that, what do you think that will result in? Because if you give AI both of those pieces of context, it will be more powerful than just with one. And that structure that I showed you, I found that being repeatable in the structure gives me more consistent results because I've refined those things that you just saw today. And the last thing is, and this is, I do this in advising in my classrooms. I want them always to leave every class or every conversation with something they feel is valuable to them. And they're like, wow, I got something out of the 20 minutes or 30 minutes I spent with that librarian. She or he was fantastic. And that is really what I suggest you think about at the high level is your value is giving them clarity, structure, and walking away with a useful output. They see the value of AI and they get help from it. All right, so let's talk about the prompts. The thing that I would suggest you do, I know you're all busy people, I would suggest that you actually use these prompts. Play the role of the type of people that come in to your office or your building and act as if you are them and run through these prompts from their point of view. Okay. Once you do it 2 or 3 times and you use whether it's Claude or you use ChatGPT, whatever tool that Perplexity, whatever tool you're using, if you have access to multiple, try it on multiple ones. Which one do you like the best? Those are the things that I would suggest you do after you leave today. And then once you do it yourself, I think you're going to have the confidence to be able to go through that more in a live way with the patrons that walk into your office or your library. So that's the basic message that I'm delivering today. I am going to show you what your website that you can use will look like. And then I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I possibly can with the remaining time that we have. All right. I will now go after this website and see if we can load it up. So this is your website built exclusively for you. There is a disclaimer here. This is really just so I know who's using things, and I want to make sure they're the people that I want to help for free, which I'm doing for you. So this website has this homepage. These are the basic instructions of using the website. There's a menu up in the upper right-hand corner. There is tasks that fit a particular problem in that menu, and this is what the menu works with. What do you do when the business owner first walks up? Do they want to improve marketing wording? Do they keep asking the same question? Like
We're not
they
seeing
need,
the screen.
you're not seeing the screen? Oh,
We're
no.
I'm saying enter meeting info.
Hold on. Ooh, that's weird. Let me try again. Entire screen, share. Do you see choose the task that fits the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. So let me do that again. That was not great. So open the menu. That's the menu in the upper right-hand corner. And when they first walk up, how to improve marketing language. They're looking for an answer. They need something built, a new page, a guide, or proposal. Their business problem is a customer doesn't act when they get the messages. Then there is the prompts that I just showed you. And each of these so there's prompt templates, the one I showed you in the presentation. I run this type of business. There's an example below it. I run a home organizing business in Columbus, Ohio. We offer in-home organizing sessions and simple reset plans for busy households. So these are an example prompt. You'll notice in this copy prompt, you can click that, copy and paste it into your LLM of choice or tool of choice. Then the critique prompt, an example, the owner pushback prompt, the customer critique prompt, and then some words about how to use them and things like that. and some suggestions on tools to use. So that is the open the menu, choose the task, use the workflow, stop, get a win by producing something for them. And then the resources is a collection of different things. One is the after critique prompting presentation that you saw today is that resource in this box. The before is the first version that I sent to Jackie and Carly for their feedback. And I use that same critique prompting technique to go from the original version to the after version. So if you wanted to see what a before and after critique prompting output would look like, that's why I gave you both versions of the presentation. And then the other websites I was showing you earlier, they're all here that you can go use, read, and get ideas from of how to help business owners. So all this material is yours that is free for you to use. If you want to share it with other people, then just contact me and we'll have a conversation about how to make that happen. All right. So that is what I wanted to talk about in terms of spewing information to you. Now I'd like to just go to, I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has, and whoever throws those questions my way. I think there was a lot of conversation in the chat, but if someone can help me sift through the questions people had, that would be great.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. We do have a few that we've grabbed from the chat. I also wanted to give anyone a chance if they wanted to unmute and ask Tom a question. That's an option as well. But I'll go ahead and ask a question that we saw in the chat. One person asked, what are the ownership issues for using these outputs? Can you claim intellectual property rights when AI did the work?
So I'm not an attorney. My older daughter happens to be a trademark, work at the U.S. Trademark Office. So I have the amateur's view of my daughter teaching me what she knows as an attorney about trademarks. From my understanding, there's not settled court cases on does the AI provider own your output? They will all tell you you own the output it's generated. What I try and do is make sure that when somebody says, when I get an AI output that says, I'm referring to something else. Let's say I use an expert called Jeremy Miner who has a technique called NepQ. And so what I do is whenever I refer to Jeremy Miner or his technique of NepQ, I know NepQ is a registered trademark phrase, and I know Jeremy Miner is a real person who's trademarked his stuff. So I give credit to Jeremy Miner, or what I do is I ask AI, can you act like you're someone who understands his techniques and apply those techniques in creating this content? I do not believe that is a violation of either copyright or trademark, but I'm not an attorney. So I think it's important that you understand if it's a direct copy of somebody else's information, that to me is an infringement. Especially if you're using it not just for fair use, but you're using it to generate revenue off of. That's not how AI produces outputs. LLMs are designed as a next most likely word that would come in a sentence prediction tool. And they don't repeat exactly what they were trained on, but they will now go find something for you on a website. So I think it's important to understand that, but there is no general rule. But I do believe that you are safe in combining your information, your knowledge with somebody else's knowledge and producing a new output. Just like if you read a book and you're taking somebody else's knowledge from that book and then creating something new, I think that is a fair use.
Jackie, you're muted.
Thank you, Carly. All right, so we've got more questions coming in through the chat. Another question was, do you discuss with your students the concerns about AI replacing the workforce?
Not only with students, but in our consulting business as well. You can imagine with students, I'll tell you student stories. but also when we do AI consulting, we approach it from, we're not coming in to teach you how to replace humans. And I've used AI enough to know that humans are like when I wrote the book, AI could not have written the book without the prompts that I created. My ideas about the four illusions that startup founders have are my ideas. AI helped me write those ideas in a way that is much easier for people to consume. And so I personally don't believe right now that AI is going to replace human thought, human decision making, knowing how to ask good questions to AI and understanding if the output is actually accurate. That said, there are people who have jobs today that if you're inputting a piece of information, not using any of your own judgment, but kind of mechanically going through a process, AI can automate that very, very clearly. So jobs that don't involve decision making or knowledge or experience, I think there is a risk of there being those jobs going away. But the kind of jobs that are being created now, and we're looking for people like this right now in our business, who can help people apply AI. Librarians, the ones I've met, wanted to help people. They didn't want to have to learn how to write AI and build an automated workflow. So your knowledge plus someone who knows how to build AI workflows to help you help more people, there are new jobs being created. From a student point of view, what I'm really trying to do in my students is really hone in on critical thinking skills. I think those are the essence of the critical jobs that they're going to be doing, less so than write some ad copy for me or copy this ad copy to LinkedIn post for me as a marketing person. I think there's going to be automation in the repetitive task. So I try and get them thinking about what should they ask AI and then thinking about what did AI produce and what do you agree with and disagree with. And my whole fundamental thing with founders is take that and go talk to people. So my students have to go talk to people about what they're doing as entrepreneurs. So the world is changing, no doubt about it. Critical thinking and getting exposure to the power of AI and how to make it work. All my students walked into my classes thinking AI couldn't do very much and that had mistakes everywhere. It was a mistake in experience in prompting is what most of what I was experiencing.
Thank you. Another question we have in the chat. If so many entrepreneurs are using AI, how can a business use this and stand out from others?
That's an awesome question. My experience so far, and again, anyone you meet that says they have a lot of AI experience, their experience window is 3 years, right? So like I started 3 years ago when ChatGPT version 3 came out, or 4 years ago whenever it came out. So I have at most a 3-year head start. Many founders, one, don't trust what AI says, they trust what their gut tells them. Two, learning to prompt effectively and understand how to use it effectively. We're still not in that everybody knows how stage. But to me, when I teach entrepreneurs, I try and teach them what you're selling to somebody is an outcome that they desire, not a problem that you're solving. And the only way to understand if you can effectively communicate with your customer is not just have AI generate content, but show them that content. So that same 3 questions, the methodology I teach is create the content. You're guessing that it's right. AI is guessing that it's right. Go talk to customers and ask them that same 3 questions. What are you thinking when you see this content? What would you change and why? And that becomes the feedback loop. And so if you've got founders who are thinking that what AI produces is good enough, I still believe they're going to lose out to the founders who take that content, test it with people, and then refine it. Because what the founder learns during that conversation is the things they were missing. AI can produce whatever you want it to, but it's going to produce what you're asking for. So if your founder has a misconception coming into AI and gives them like not well structured or a misconception about what the customer wants input, the AI is going to produce misconception output that's not going to resonate. So I teach human in the loop feedback as the differentiator between founder A and founder B.
Thank you. So it looks like we have just time for about one more question. A lot of people have been asking kind of about spending on these tools, especially for like small businesses that have limited resources. Could you just maybe talk a little bit about what you've presented to us, some of the free options, some of the not free options?
Yeah. So I look at, so the way I look at the world right now is if I'm going to spend a limited amount of money on a single tool, Claude is the tool I would use at this moment in time. 6 months ago, my answer was ChatGPT. It's no longer ChatGPT. So Claude is the $20 a month or $30 a month tool that I would spend money on because it's got these capabilities that do mockups and all these things that they've added this thing called cowork, so you can start to automate things. And if you really want to like have an inner geek and you want to start building code, there's Claude Code. So all three of those different modes are valuable. The way I try and explain it to people is if you tell me that you go to Starbucks once a week or once a day, then the price of this is foregoing Starbucks 4 days out of your work week, right? And the power that you get back from a Starbucks is very temporal. The power you get back from these tools it can help you throughout the week. All the content that you can click into that you've seen today, and once you start going in, there's like 84-page book. There's another book that's 115 pages. There's another book. All that content, 3 books, 4 websites, even the presentation files of my class, all that together was less than $400. So if you think about anything where you would have to go talk to a human and contract to have a human do something, the odds that it's going to cost more than $400 is probably pretty high. So, Manus, so that's on one side of it. The other side of it is if you're not efficient in how you prompt it, then your cost can go up and up and up and up and up and up. So being good at using the tool, getting good at using the tool helps you manage that kind of cost.
Okay, thank you. Someone left a comment. They said, "Got to pay for something." Okay, so I think that's the time that we have. There's lots of great conversation going in the chat, but we need to move on. So thank you, Tom.
Right.
I'm going to, yeah, thank you. I'm going to.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you find value in what I gave you today.
Thank you, Tom. So now I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording to move on to our next part of the workshop.